Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning into another one of the mini-casts. I've titled this one, Weaponizing the Environment, because we're going to be talking about just that, the fact that these people are literally genetically engineering plants to spy on people. Dumping all kinds of chemicals, toxic chemicals on vegetables. I mean, what is Monsanto? Genetically engineering our food, genetically engineering the plants, genetically engineering everything. And as I've talked about, throughout the entirety of the show, the fact that this stuff bioaccumulates in us. The fact that these people are trying to modify the environment as well as us. I talk about this all the time in our TerraForming Earth series that I think you guys should check out. But we're going to be talking about that and so much more in this edition. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So as I said, we're going to be talking about how these people are literally using the environment against us. But before I do, I want to actually use this moment as kind of like a shout out, or at least a good bridge point as to why this stuff is important. This is from Connecting Consciousness. He always has those little random factoids, but he put this up. Mugwort is an ancient herb known to induce lucid dreaming and astral projection. Now, in our recent minicast, we talked about the concept of digital tripping, how these people are literally going to use pills, behavior modification, gene therapy, virtual reality, augmented reality, biohacking, and all kinds of other different things to induce this kind of state. You see, so when we're talking about the environment, whenever we're talking about drugs, whenever we're talking about the human orientation in relation to it, we really have to understand that we are much more than we think. And whenever we actually start paying attention to the environment and paying attention to what happens to us in relation to it, it's very important. That's all I can really keep trying to hammer on to people. But let me continue on. It says consumption of the plant or tincture thereof has been shown to increase the intensity of dreams, the level of control, and aids in the recall of dreams upon waking. This can even be achieved from smoking the plant. He goes on to say that your dreams are created by your subconscious mind, which is infinitely more powerful than your conscious mind. It's a very good idea to write your dreams down. Keep a dream journal. Why? Well, let's say you're studying something, studying for something. If you consciously create the reality where you have a dream about you studying, in your dream, you're aware that you're dreaming and you study. That's the equivalent of weeks worth of studying in the dream realm. Call it what you want, but you can access near anything on the astral realm. You may even run into some entities on the payroll of some big agencies. Yes, they employ people, psychics, clairvoyants to patrol the astral, but no matter, they can't stop us. And this is actually very true. I actually talked about this in our episode, Projects, Powers, and Psychics. I definitely think you guys should go back and look at that. I've really been wanting to do a refresher on it. And it's the concept that these people are using things like Project Growth Flame, Project Centerlane, and Project Sunstreak, different organizations to basically look into psychokinetic energies, basically telekinesis. How are these people doing these types of things? As you said before, entities that are employed by these big agencies. So let's get into like what I said before, talking about how these people are weaponizing the environment against us. Why would Japan dump 1 million tons of radioactive water into the Pacific? We already know not to eat the fish from there. I mean, Oregon, Washington, even California, all kinds of places up along the West Coast have been affected by the dumping of all of this stuff, of all this radioactive water. This stuff is insane when you start trying to break it down. I mean, think about it. These people are literally making the water toxic. They're making the air unbreathable. They're trying to destroy the actual fertility of the soil. And all of these things, as I said before at the start of the show, they bioaccumulate. And I'll get into one of the reasons as to why they bioaccumulate, why all these pesticides, these toxins, these chemicals, this radioactive water, and everything else, how it's been shown to affect us. But I put this up November 27th. It's from Drudge Report Feed. It says that more than 6 years ago, after the tsunami devastated Japan's west coast and overwhelmed the Fukushima nuclear plant, it has been revealed radioactive water could be pumped into the sea. There are 900 tanks filled with water that could spill if there was another earthquake or tsunami. And as we've heard, that there's clearly been a number of earthquakes going on over here in America. I mean, look at what's going on in Bali. It's crazy. Experts have advised the government to carry out a gradual release into the Pacific Ocean. Treatment has removed all the radioactive elements except tritium, which they say is safe in small amounts. Conversely, if the tanks break, their contents could slosh out in an uncontrolled way. So before I continue in this, because I'm sure it will slosh out in an uncontrolled way. Before I get into this, this is why I talked about this in American Fukushima. To me, this is somewhat of the equivalent. We're basically talking about how they're unleashing all kinds of chemicals into society, into the environment. These things that devastate the ocean, that devastate the earth, that devastate the air, because it's got to be cycled. I mean, what happens whenever we start talking about radioactive water? It is crazy. That's what I'm talking about. These people are weaponizing the environment. And you got to think, the earth has been here a lot longer than we have. And we might think that we're being slick and clever and all these other things. But we're I don't want to say we're inconsequential in relation to the earth. But what we think is powerful may not necessarily be powerful. The earth will be here after we are here. But even though we're doing all these things, it affects us while we're here. You can look at the generational differences between people and know that just somebody in the common day, probably 20 or 40 years ago, even in 100 years ago, their physiques were immensely different because of the environment, because of how they were made or how they were conditioned, what they were up against. What are we up against? We are literally living in a chemical cocktail. You see, so let me get into this. That is despite repeated tests showing that the most fish caught off the coast of Fukushima are safe to eat. People have been reluctant to eat the fish, and the fishermen believe that any release of water would be devastating to their recovery. Quote, people would shun Fukushima fish again as soon as the water is released, said Fumio Haga, a dragnet fisherman from Iwaki, a city about 30 miles down the coast from the nuclear plant. The amount of radioactive water at Fukushima is still growing by 150 tons today. That is crazy. The amount of radioactive water at Fukushima is still growing by 150 tons a day. 6 years ago. And they're about to dump more. And people are still eating the fish. This is why we have all these genetic abnormalities, all these mutations, all of these things. And as I said before, I don't know if I got to this at the start of the show, but this creates epigenetic diseases. This is a form, if you ask me, of population control. This is eugenics. This is geo-engineering. This is all the different things that we talk about. Why whenever with hurricanes Fukushima, Maria, and Irma, I was talking about them making places uninhabitable, to where humans can't go to them. This is crazy. This is a problem leaking off issues that we haven't even begun to rationalize yet. Let me continue. It says the reactors are damaged beyond repair, but cooling water must be constantly pumped in to keep them from overheating. The water picks up radioactivity before leaking out of the damaged containment chambers and collecting in the basements. There, the volume of contaminated water grows because it mixes with groundwater that has been seeped in through the cracks of the reactor buildings. After treatment, 210 tons is reused as cooling water, while the remaining 150 tons is sent to tank storage. During heavy rains, the groundwater inflow increases significantly, adding to the volume. The water is a costly headache for the Tokyo Power Electric Company, the utility that owns the plant. To reduce the flow, it has dug dozens of wells to pump out groundwater before it reaches the reactor buildings and built an underground ice wall of questionable effectiveness by partially freezing the ground around the reactors. So this is an ongoing problem. This is definitely something that's going to come back to bite us in the ass. Excuse my French. This is definitely something that we have not even, that's not dealt with. Those are band-aids on scars. They're having to cycle it with more water to basically get rid of it. But they're not even getting rid of it. They're just pushing it back. They're cycling it. It's crazy. That is crazy. And check this out. This is something, I'll put this link in the description bar below for you guys. But right here, number of toxic chemicals applied to vegetables increased 17-fold since the 60s. This is vegetables, okay? With Fukushima, we're talking about how this water is literally going out into the Pacific Ocean, literally hitting the West Coast, literally destroying fish, destroying the wildlife, the aquatic life, the marine biology. Right? And then they say, oh, well, we don't know why the koi fish are getting so huge. We don't know why the goldfish are getting so huge. We don't understand why all these fish, now, not the genetically modified salmon, where you can find the serial numbers on the scales. No, I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the fish coming from Fukushima, coming from Japan, possibly even tilapia. This is the stuff that they send over here to America, mind you. That's why I have a really hard time, with what's going on with our food. You see what I'm saying? This is why they're trying to push, and again, why we have to look at this vegan, the vegan movement. I understand the people. I really get it, but I have a lot of questions for the vegans, but that's none of your guys' concern. My point is this: what's going on with our food? Are we getting the right amount of nutrients? Are we having mutated food given to us? I mean, we're not even talking about McDonald's. I don't really even consider that food. I'm not talking about pink slime that they consider to call it hot dogs. I'm not talking about any of these Frankenstein foods. I'm talking about actual animal life. I'm talking about plants. I'm talking about fruits, vegetables, all this stuff. Right here, number of toxic chemicals applied to vegetables increased 17-fold since the 60s. And I'll put this link in the description bar below because this is on our website. But this stuff is very important. They don't necessarily, it doesn't list which companies are involved, but I'm going to go ahead and point my finger at Monsanto and Bayer right off the bat. 17-fold. The number of chemicals applied to supermarket vegetable crops has increased by up to 17-fold in 40 years, data shows, as the organic food industry and scientists have warned that consumers are exposed to a, quote, toxic cocktail of pesticides. I would agree. I would agree. Then you got to talk about things like Monsanto's glyphosate, Monsanto's Roundup, Monsanto's dicamba, and all this other stuff as well. Like I said before, how it bioaccumulates not only in us, but in the earth as well, where they are basically making it to where things can't grow. The earth is becoming infertile. The soil is dead. It's literally been chemically cleansed. It's crazy. Figures released for the first time by the Soil Association, which certifies organic food, show the number of toxic chemicals applied to onions, leeks, wheat, and potatoes has been steadily increasing since the 1960s. This is despite industry data showing that the weight of pesticides applied in the UK has halved since the 1990s. Speaking at the Royal Society of Medicine conference on pesticides yesterday, where the figures were unveiled, and this was yesterday, November 28th. Today is Tuesday, so on Monday. Speaking yesterday, so that would be on Sunday, where the figures were unveiled, scientists were warned that consuming tiny amounts of many different chemicals on a regular basis could be harmful to human health. Holy hell. I'm going to read that one more time. Speaking at the Royal Society of Medicine conference on pesticides yesterday, where the figures were unveiled, scientists warned that consuming tiny amounts of many different chemicals on a regular basis could be harmful to human health. Consumption of toxic cocktails of low-level pesticide cocktails are thought to be linked with degenerative diseases like strokes, heart attacks, and cancers. Speaking at the conference, Professor Anne-Marie Vengard, Division of Diet, Disease Prevention, and Toxicology at the National Food Institute, said, quote, chemicals can have a mixture effect. They may have no effect by themselves, but when mixed with a pronounced mixture effect, quote, we are not just exposed to pesticides. We are exposed to a lot of chemicals acting together, and we must take account of this cocktail effect affecting the same target audience that the pesticides are. The figures were compiled by the data firm Science, which used to be a government arm, and were only made public after the Soil Association paid for them to be released from archives. Onions and leeks have seen the biggest rise in toxic chemicals applied to them, with the number rising 17-fold from 1.8 in 1966 to 32.6 in 2015. Data showed back in 1974, less than 2 chemicals were applied to an average wheat crop, a figure which rose more than tenfold to 2.7 in 2014. And potato crops are now sprayed with 5 times more chemicals than they were in 1975, with the number rising from 5.3 to 30.8 in 2014. So that's crazy. That blows my mind. All of those different chemicals, all the things that they're tossing out there to you, these people that are saying this, from the Soil Association and from the National Food Institute, from the Royal Society of Medicine Conference, are saying that if we consume more of these chemicals, they will lead to heart attacks, degenerative diseases, strokes, cancers, and all kinds of other things. We really have to look at what is affecting us. These people are trying to kill us. And on top of that, to confirm what these doctors are saying, boom, check this out. Another study links Parkinson's disease to pesticides. Yes. And if you want to start talking about diseases that these people are creating, what is Morgellons? What is cancer? You know, what is Zika? What are all these different things? That's what I'm saying. Weaponizing the environment to go against us. Let me get into this. This is from Sign of the Times. It says another study links Parkinson's disease to the pesticides, and it says Parkinson's disease, PD, is a movement disorder that generally impairs speech and motor skills and is characterized by tremors and muscular rigidity. There is still a lot to learn about the symptoms and effects of Parkinson's disease, but recently a new study concluded with interesting results. How is Parkinson's disease contracted? There are many forms of Parkinson's disease that appear to be idiopathic, meaning doctors aren't sure of the causes. Some cases are linked to drug toxicity, medical disorders, or head trauma. The latest observation that medical scientists are exploring is a possible link between pesticides and Parkinson's disease, as we literally just discussed. Holy hell. Excuse my language again. You know, these people, you got to like, finally they want to catch on. They want to catch on because these people are killing us. It's not about just Parkinson's disease. It's not about just what they're spraying on our vegetables. It's what it does to us. As they said before, ingesting tiny amounts of many different chemicals over a long period of time, it is detrimental. It will create degenerative diseases. It will create things like Parkinson's. It will create things like cancer. It will destroy your immune system. It will harm you. And this is why when they tell you, oh, you know, don't look up, don't worry about that. That's contrails, that's chemtrails. Don't worry. No, that debate needs to go out of the window. Whenever we literally have Congress talking about it, whenever we have the Air Force deploying C-130s attached with chemical disbursement gear over Texas to help combat some of the mosquitoes that were drifted in there. No. It's not about what are they spraying. We know what they are spraying. They are trying to destroy us. They are trying to kill us. I don't mean to be so drastic on this, but this particular minicast is something that I've been trying to encapsulate for a while. And whenever we have this kind of information that highlights this, that really encapsulates all of this stuff, you have got to trap it. So let me get into this. It says, according to new research into the causes of Parkinson's disease, 2 specific insecticides classes were cited as significantly associated: organochlorines and organophosphorus compounds. While the research isn't exhaustive or definitive, the results compiled thus far are enough to warrant closer examination by the medical community. Did anyone know that these chemicals posed a risk? The answer is yes. I've been telling you that. It's not news that the pesticides are harmful. The Codex Alimentarius Commission, and this is basically Codex Alimentarius is the same thing as Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2050. These people are trying to, as I keep trying to reiterate, clearly weaponize the environment, turn it against us. Not only make it to where we seem as though we are inferior against the planet, but we are also detrimental, and that we need to stop our own activities whenever these people are doing all the things that they're doing. It's crazy. It is crazy. But the Codex Alimentarius Commission, CAC, was set up by the World Health Organization to create international safety guidelines for food. They researched the threat, dismissed the evidence of dangers presented to them, and approved 7 dangerous toxic chemical compounds, including organochlorines and pesticides. Of course, organophosphates, I'm sure. there is a wealth of health-related information explaining even more about the dangers of pesticides and other chemicals that we've exposed regularly with the sanctions of the government. With this new link to Parkinson's disease, perhaps more attention will be paid to the poisons known as pesticides, insecticides, and herbicides. Scientists will have to seriously rethink their ideas about the excessive use of chemicals in lieu of non-toxic crop rotation practices and other safe practices. And the reason why we have to talk about this stuff, why I want to talk about this stuff, is because we're not just talking about food. We're not just talking about animals. We're talking about it all. We're talking about us. We're talking about how this stuff affects us. As I let in with, if there are plants out there that can induce you into the astral plane, that can take us into different states of consciousness, what happens whenever we start destroying these types of things? What happens whenever we start openly destroying our way of healing the planet, of finding solutions, of actually getting through and creating change? You see, they're trying to make it to where we can't escape. They want us more enslaved into this system right here. Let's get into this as well. And I think this is another article that we have on here, and I'll try to wrap this up for you guys. But the FDA loyalty to Big Pharma exposed in the move to ban a plant that's curing the opioid addiction. And if you guys have been paying attention lately, I've been talking about the opioid addiction because this is, again, their solution. Pharmakeia, witchcraft, not alchemy, witchcraft. These people are putting band-aids on scars, and if anything, these band-aids have rocks in them, or they have another virus in them. They're trying to make people into junkies. They're trying to turn people into druggies. They're trying to make them all big pharma drug addicted zombies. It's crazy. So then whenever people actually start trying to provide alternatives, and this is why marijuana is getting so much of a rap these days, is becoming politicized, is because they want to provide the only solutions that they think you'll need. They don't want you to try to find a way out of these problems that they've created. You see, as I said before, all of these chemicals, and now we're talking about more, all of these chemicals that we're ingesting, these things, they affect us, and we might not think they affect us presently. You know, a lot of people have to come off of withdrawal from whenever they take opioids, or, you know, we don't think it affects us presently whenever, you know, we can't see what kind of effects our biology is having. You know, if our immune system's weakened from all the crazy processed food. You see, we might not know those kinds of effects immediately, but whenever we have children, and this is why they're trying to say that the autism rates will be so high. Whenever we have children, whenever the next generation comes through, this is why they're trying to attack them now. It's because of things like our diet. It's because of things like our food. It's because of things like the environment. You see, let me get into this so I can close this up for you guys. And this is an article on our website as well. FDA loyalty to Big Pharma exposed and moved to ban plant that's curing opioid addiction. We're talking about kratom. It says drug overdoses killed roughly 64,000 people in the United States last year, according to the government's own account of nationwide drug deaths to cover all of 2016. The vast majority of those deaths are from opioid-based substances such as fentanyl, heroin, and prescription opioids. Now, a natural plant that is helping people kick their addictions to these dangerous opioids, kratom, is under attack by the FDA and is threatening Big Pharma's grip on the pain and addiction market, because they want to hold that down. They don't want to allow people to literally find their own cure. This is why we have holistic doctors being killed left and right, alternative and holistic doctors being killed, because they don't want you to try to heal yourself. You better go to the doctor. I mean, and just like I said before, the previous minicast, digital tripping, where we were talking about this, the FDA making a pill that literally monitors your behavior. It notifies up to 4 people around you saying she took her medication here, she took her medication there, she took this is when she ingested it. That's crazy. They want to be the only people providing you health care, and that's crazy. It says, on Tuesday, Scott Gottlieb, Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, issued a public health advisory on kratom outlining concerns about its deadly risks. As the Huffington Post notes, Gottlieb's statement outlined concerns about the herb's potential for abuse and addiction. He claimed there was clear data on these harms, pointing to reports of 36 deaths associated with kratom-containing products and a tenfold increase in calls involving kratom to U.S. poison control centers from 2010 to 2015. So I'm going to go ahead and say 2015. 36 deaths from 2010 to 2015. That doesn't really seem like much. I'll be honest. That's only like 6 deaths each year from kratom, which I'm unfamiliar with, to be honest with you. But if we're looking at the amount of deaths and the amount of addictions that big pharma has created, don't even get us all started. Why are we still in Afghanistan? Why are we trying to harvest all kinds of heroin? Why do we want poppy seeds? There's some crazy stuff going on when we're looking at just drugs alone. So heaven help you, you actually go to a doctor and they try to heal you. I mean, these people, 50 nurses just the other day, I think it was in Ohio or Michigan. Yeah. 50 nurses stopped going to work because they're like, you know what? I'm not getting this flu shot, dude. I'm not doing it. Our health is essential. And if we can't have that, if they are trying this hard to literally dose us up and make us into this much of a junkie, this much of a slave, because that's all it really is. If you really break it down, all of these drug dealers, you know, George W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, these people pushing the drug, the CIA, the FBI, all these people pushing these drugs into these communities so they can create people who are addicted to these types of drugs, only for them to turn around, try to kick these drugs, and then get on opioids. It's just one system after the next, one enslavement tool after the next. Don't do drugs is what I'm basically telling you right now. And yes, this is part of the environment, because these toxic things that they try to do, we have natural ways of healing ourselves. But if we keep looking into this system for further help, we are only going to be finding ourselves more enslaved. That's how this works. These people, they don't really offer solutions if you haven't caught on. They really do make things a lot worse. And whenever I'm talking about them weaponizing the environment, 698 earthquakes in California within the past 30 days, Bali's Mount Agun erupting, people being evacuated. I mean, what was hurricane season? People are still reeling from hurricane season. Japan dropping 1 million tons of radioactive water, but at the same time letting out 150 tons of water every day. I mean, just the other week we were talking about the Keystone Pipeline. They are weaponizing the environment against us. And Flint still needs water. They're trying to weaponize the environment against us to where we don't, to where they kill us. And now they're trying to say that there's some space, there's some bacteria that was found outside of the International Space Station. My point is this, and I try to talk about this in a lot of my different series. You know, the Building the Matrix series and the TerraForming Earth series. They are trying to basically destroy the exterior world and push us in the more populated centers, similar to Bill Gates' smart city and Mohammed bin Salman's future vision for NEOM, these smart cities, these places where they can monitor everything. But at the same time, they want to destroy the exterior world. They want to make it uninhabitable. They want to make these places like Chernobyl, Fukushima, and all of these other places that they don't really mention, you know, that are still leaking radioactive material, these Superfund sites that they don't really know what to do with. They want to make places uninhabitable so they can control where we go, what we do, monitor what we have. You see, we really have to understand not only where the world is, but where these people are. They want to try to further enslave us. You see, there's over 3,800, so 3,800 U.S. water supplies that are up to 400% more contaminated than Flint alone. But Flint still needs water. All these places need water. We all need different water. That's what I'm talking about. We can't even drink the water. And then when you try to talk about drinking from the plastic water, the plastic bottles, you got to worry about the chemicals that are in there from the plastic itself, making people sterile, making them effeminate, scrambling our genes and our gender, messing with our minds. This is what I mean by these people trying to weaponize the environment. However, that's all I really have for you guys. I know I kind of went over a lot and I jumped around all over the place, but I really wanted to encapsulate the fact that there's another study linking pesticides to Parkinson's, to neural diseases, to degenerative diseases. These are very big things. The fact that these people are spraying massive amounts of chemicals all over us. I mean, I didn't even really get into a lot of the other things that I wanted to talk about. This hepatitis A outbreak, all these other hepatitis outbreaks. This is part of the vaccine agenda. All these things that they're doing, they're trying to make it. They don't work in our favor. Yes, these things spread, and yes, we're talking about superbugs. We're talking about drug-resistant superbugs. All kinds of strange things. I didn't even get into how DARPA is basically trying to genetically engineer a plant to spy on people. That's crazy. That is crazy. But what we really have to understand is that they are now using this type of technology, using these types of things, going into overdrive, and as I said before, engineering the environment so that they can also engineer us. This is what I mean by the technocracy. This is what I mean by transhumanism. It's past chemtrails. You see, this is what chemtrails has brought on. Now they're doing all kinds of other strange things, and this is a theme that we will continue to touch back on throughout the entirety of the show, as we always try to, but I really wanted to encapsulate this. So if anything, make sure you guys go back and check out our Terraforming Earth series, and as well listen to our Building the Matrix documentary. We are working on a more revised version so that it can be better ingested, better understood. There's a lot of different things going on, and I really wanted to encapsulate just this stuff for you guys. But like I said, that's all I really have. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys, stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out.